They work together? Are we really looking at another government shutdown? Senator Angus King is an independent from Maine. He is on the Senate Budget Committee, the Select Committee on Intelligence, and the Committee on Armed Services. Senator, good to have you. You can answer every question I have this morning. The first one is, do you believe a shutdown is in the cards?
I hope not. I don't think so. But you put it exactly right, Chris, when you said we're talking about the relationship between politics and governing. This debt ceiling thing, for example, is 100% politics and has nothing to do with governing. It's a completely phony issue.
It plays to people that say we borrow too much as it is, and then Republicans will say, and now they want to raise the debt ceiling again. How is that a fake issue?
Well, but because the problem is, it implies most people think this is so the government can borrow more money to spend more. No, this is in order to enable us to pay the bills we've already incurred. Not raising the debt ceiling would be exactly like spending money for a month on your credit card and then at the end of the month saying, I don't think I'm going to pay it back. What would that do to your credit? What would that do to your financial situation? The debt ceiling is to allow us to pay the bills we already have made. If it were to open the floodgates for more spending, I'd be on the other side of the issue. But that's not what it is. But that's people are confusing it, and it ought to be called, instead of raising the debt ceiling, it ought to be called the pay your bills enactment. And that's the confusion that's out there. It's a handy way for people to vote for spending, take credit for it back in their districts, and then vote against the debt ceiling and saying, I'm a fiscal conservative. It's fake, and it doesn't do the country any good. What if an enemy said, we're going to do something that's going to cause your interest rates to go up? It could cause a global financial meltdown. It will certainly cost you hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of jobs. We'd be having investigations up here about whose fault it is. Well, guess what? That's exactly what we're trying to do, or some are trying to do, to ourselves.
So how do you make it stop?
It's ridiculous.
How do you make it stop? How do you make the spending stop? How do you make government be more accountable and fiscally responsible?
Well, I think that is the real question, and the answer is we've got to stop borrowing. I agree with that. We're borrowing $500 billion a year, digging a hole for our kids. I think that's wrong. There are three things we have to do. We do have to responsibly cut spending. We do have to, I believe, have some more revenues. And finally, we have to do things that will grow the economy. It's not going to help the economy grow if we're cutting spending in things like R&D, infrastructure, highways, and education. That's a way to collapse your economy. So we've got to look at that. The real problem, by the way, Chris, with the budget is, and as you mentioned, I'm on that committee, I've been living this stuff for 3 years, is not with what most people think of as federal spending, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, national parks, and those kinds of things. It's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That's where the growth is. Why? Because healthcare costs are going up. They have been for 20 years, faster than the rate of inflation. And secondly, because we're aging. 10,000 people a day are qualifying now for Social Security and Medicare. That's a demographic reality. Spending on domestic needs and even on defense are at the lowest level as a percentage of our economy for 50 years. So if people wanted to reduce the level of federal spending, they've done it. But attacking Head Start or the national parks or even the Department of Defense to try to control federal spending and ignoring 2/3 of the budget that's where the real growth is just isn't going to work.
All right, so that's one side of the argument, and we will see where it goes because obviously you got your deadline looming. Another topic of the day. What is going on with all the hacking? This guy that was on our air this morning, you know, his voice was described, but he sounds like a dope, and yet he was able to hack, allegedly, the director of the CIA. Do you think that happened? And if so, what is going on with our security on the internet?
I can't confirm either way about whether or not it happened, but I know it can happen. One of the problems is, Chris, the good news is we're the most wired society on earth. We're the most advanced technologically. The bad news is that makes us the most vulnerable. I had a thing up in Maine recently for Maine businesses about cybersecurity. And by the way, we hope to have a cybersecurity bill on the floor as early as today. It should have been some months ago, but hey, I'm not going to argue. Let's try to get it done this week. But people have to be aware that there are all kinds of bad guys out there, whether they're hackers or crooks or foreign governments that are trying to get into our system.
All day long, and he's able, with a couple of buddies, you know, to get in and get after the CIA director.
Yeah, if the CIA director, I presume, may have a private email address, just like most people do, like you and I probably do. That was what they got in. I don't think there's any allegation that they got into any kind of CIA system. But we all have to be more sensible. All of us get these emails, you know, from somewhere around the country that says you inherited $100,000. Click here. We got to be smart about not doing that.
I'm still waiting on my money, by the way. I had no idea that I had relatives in Ghana.
Yeah, that's right. Well, also we got to change your passwords. I mean, we've got to get up to speed on the kind of basic internet sensibility about how to protect ourselves from things like this. We are vulnerable. There's no doubt about it.
Last question. Are you ready to support Trump for president yet?
Well, I think Michael made a really good point that between Trump and Carson, you notice I'm dodging the question.
Yes,
Trump
very
and Carson.
artfully.
Very artfully, that's what I do. Trump and Carson together, 49% of the Republican vote. Neither one have ever served 5 minutes in public office. I think that says something very interesting and deep about the state of our politics and the state of the country. Their people are distrustful. They're looking for a new voice. And I think you guys sometimes are spending too much time on Trump's issues. What does he say about what does he say about September 11th? What does he say about immigration? People don't vote for issues, they vote for people. And I think a lot of people are responding to Trump not because of what he's saying, but how he says it and the idea that, you know, he's not kidding people, he's giving it as it is, he's being himself. It's very interesting. You've got Trump and Bernie Sanders who are getting a lot of support because of who they are. They're sort of feisty, and people are looking for leaders and people that'll make problems go away. That's a little dangerous, though, Chris. Historically, throughout history, not only in this country but other places, when times get tough and people are unsure of themselves, they look for the man on the white horse. Somebody's going to come in and sort of take care of them. And that can be very dangerous, and dangerous for democracy, because our system is based upon more than just one person having all the power.
Candor is something that has to be used the right way. Certainly that's something you're credited with very often. Senator King, thank you very much, and we appreciate your tacit endorsement of Donald Trump on New Day this morning.
There you go, Chris. Run with it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, we'll stay with you on the debt ceiling. It's an important conversation. We'll be back when the timeline gets even closer. Thank you, Senator. Michaela.